December 18th, 2025. On a wet ramp in Statesville, North Carolina, a tragedy began. But it didn't begin with a crash. It didn't begin with a stall. It began with a sound that every private jet pilot dreads. The sound of a dying battery. For weeks, the world has been asking, why did the plane crash? They are looking at the engines, they are looking at the weather, but they are looking at the end of the story, not the beginning. There is a theory, a brutal, uncomfortable truth that suggests this flight was doomed before the wheels even rolled. It's a theory about a $3,000 lead-acid battery. It's a theory about airline arrogance versus private reality. And it's a theory that says, when you abuse the machine fights back. Today, we are going to talk about the pink elephant in the cockpit. We are going to talk about why a retired Delta captain, a NASCAR legend, and a young pilot found themselves trapped in a dark cockpit fighting ghosts they created themselves. I'm Kevin, and this is the battery theory. To understand why Flight 257 crashed, we have to understand the man in the left seat, Dennis Dutton, a retired airline captain, a veteran. In the world of aviation, airline captain is a title that demands respect. It implies perfection. It implies safety. But there is a dangerous trap in that title. When you fly for Delta, or United, or FedEx, you live in a bubble of support. You walk onto the plane 45 minutes before departure. The coffee is brewed, the fuel is loaded, the flight plan is filed. If a light bulb is out, you call maintenance. A guy in a truck comes and fixes it. If the toilet is dirty, you call cleaning. A crew comes and scrubs it. You are paid to fly. You are not paid to be a mechanic, a cleaner, or a fueler. But then you retire. You start flying private jets, general aviation. And suddenly, the bubble pops. In the world of private aviation, you are the support crew. There is no maintenance department waiting on the ramp at Statesville. There is no dispatcher doing your math. If the toilet needs cleaning, you get on your knees and you clean it. If the plane needs power, you walk into the FBO and you negotiate for a ground power unit. Flying with Glenn, a veteran corporate pilot, points out a critical psychological failure in this crash. Dennis Dutton likely approached this flight with an airline mentality. He showed up at 7:45 a.m. for an 8 a.m. departure. He expected the plane to be ready. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. And that attitude, that refusal to engage with the gritty reality of the machine, set the stage for the disaster. Let's talk about the machine. The Cessna Citation 550. It's a good airplane, but it is needy. It relies on electricity, and the heart of that system is the battery. Glenn has a simple rule: be nice to your battery. Why? Because a jet battery is not like a car battery. When you press the start button on a jet engine, you are asking that battery to deliver a massive surge of amperage. It is a violent event. The voltage drops, the heat rises. If you are a smart pilot, you never, ever use the battery to start the engines if you can avoid it. You use a ground power unit, a cart that plugs into the side of the jet and provides clean, steady electricity. Using a cart saves your battery. It saves your starter. It allows you to run the air conditioning and check the avionics without draining the ship's power. But carts cost money. Sometimes the FBO charges $75. Sometimes you have to wait 10 minutes for the line guy to bring it out. And if you are rushing, if you are an airline guy who just wants to go, you skip the cart. You say, I'll just do a battery start. On the morning of December 18th, Dennis Dutton chose the battery start. He chose to save 10 minutes, and that choice cost him everything. 9:44 a.m. The NTSB report contains a line that chills the blood of any mechanic. Initial unsuccessful start of the left engine. They tried to start the number 1 engine, and it failed. Maybe it was a hung start. Maybe it didn't light off. But here is what happened to the battery in that moment. It gave everything it had. It was drained. It was abused. The voltage likely plummeted below 18 volts. In a modern jet, a computer would stop you. But in a 1981 Citation, you are on your own. Now, you have a dead battery and 2 cold engines. What do? A careful pilot would stop. They would call for a cart. They would let the battery recharge. But Dennis Dutton was rushing. He was already late. So they likely forced a start on the right engine and then used the generator from that engine to jump-start the dead left engine. This is called a cross-generator start. It is a legal procedure, but it is complex. It requires flipping switches, generator off, starter on, generator on, and crucially, once the engines are running, you must remember to switch the system back to normal. You must switch the generators online to charge the battery. But if you are stressed, if you are frustrated because the first start failed, if you are rushing to beat the weather, did they forget a switch? Did they leave the system in a start configuration? Did the initial failed start damage the battery cells so badly that it could no longer hold a charge? Glenn's theory is simple. The battery was dead before they took off. The pink elephants, the gremlins, were already loose in the cockpit. While the battery was dying, the weather was closing in. Glenn points out another massive failure in professionalism: the flight plan. In the airline world, you get a slot time. In the private world, you get a void time. You call flight service on the phone because you are smart and arrived 1.5 hours early. You say, citation 257 BW, IFR to Florida. They say, cleared as filed, clearance void if not off by 8:30. This gives you a protected window. You can take off, enter the clouds immediately, and you are safe. ATC expects you. But Dennis Dutton didn't do this. He didn't arrive early. He didn't call on the phone. Instead, he looked at the clouds and said, I'll go VFR. I'll take off visually, stay under the clouds, and call them in the air. Glenn calls this suicide. Why? Because you are in a jet. You are doing 180 knots in the climb. The clouds are at 1,200 feet. The mountains are all around you. Taking off VFR into a low ceiling means you have to stay low. You have to scud run, and at low altitude, your radio doesn't work. This explains the panic on the tapes. Jack Dutton, the son, is screaming, "Center, center!" But Center can't hear him because he is hugging the treetops to stay out of the clouds. He trapped himself. He traded the safety of a phone call on the ground for the chaos of a radio call in the air. And he did it to save, 5 minutes? Now, let's look inside the cockpit during the crisis. We know Greg Biffle's voice is on the CVR. He is pointing out engine gauges. He is asking about the alternator. Some people asked, was he sitting in the co-pilot seat? Glenn clarifies the geometry of the citation. If Greg was in the right seat, he wouldn't be asking questions, he would be flying. No, Greg was in the back. But to be heard on the CVR, he had to be close. Imagine the scene. The cockpit of a citation is tiny. Greg Biffle, a man used to the wide track of a NASCAR circuit, is likely kneeling in the narrow aisle between the two pilots. He has probably grabbed a spare headset. He is leaning over their shoulders, trying to read the gauges that are failing. How about the alternator, he asks. He means the generator. He is using car terminology. But he is right. He senses the power loss. This paints a tragic picture. You have the pilot, Dennis, overwhelmed. You have the passenger pilot, Jack, uselessly working the radio. And you have the owner, Greg, trying to troubleshoot from his knees in the aisle. It is a breakdown of crew resource management so total, it is almost hard to watch. And Glenn asks the hard question. Why didn't Greg just take the seat? If Greg Biffle had known that Dennis was struggling, if he had known Jack was unqualified, Greg Biffle was a man of action. If he had physically swapped seats with Jack Dutton, if he had put his hands on that yoke, we might not be having this conversation. But he trusted the captain. He trusted the airline veteran. And that trust was the final link in the chain. 10:10 a.m. The plane is in the clouds. And then the lights go out. The CVR stops recording the captain's channel. The transponder fails. The Garmin GPS fails. This is the battery's revenge. Because they abused the battery on startup. Because they likely didn't get the generators online properly. The system collapsed. The inverter, the device that turns DC to AC for the flight instruments, failed. Dennis shouts, "My gyro is tumbling. His artificial horizon is dead." He is now flying a 7-ton missile inside a cloud, with no idea which way is up. And because they didn't do the pre-flight work, because they didn't have the told card with the speeds, when they finally broke out of the clouds and saw the runway, Dennis reverted to instinct. He pulled the power. He tried to land visually, but he was heavy, and he was slow. 93 knots. The stall warning didn't just sound, it screamed. The battery had one last spark of energy left, enough to power the stick shaker. Dennis jammed the throttles forward. But a jet engine is not a NASCAR engine. It doesn't explode with power instantly. It spools. It hesitates. And in that hesitation, the trees reached up and grabbed them. So what is the lesson? Is it about stall speeds? Is it about weather? Yes. But deeper than that, it is about respect. Glenn's message is harsh, but necessary. Don't be a cheapo. Don't be too proud to clean the toilet. Don't be too proud to ask for a cart. If Dennis Dutton had arrived at 6:30 a.m., if he had cleaned the windshield, if he had ordered the GPU cart and sat there with the air conditioning on, checking every light bulb, if he had found that thrust reverser light on the ground and called a mechanic, if he had done the dirty work, he would have found the problems on the ground. He would have fixed the switch. He would have saved the battery. He would have gotten his void time. And they would have taken off into a safe, controlled IFR flight. The crash didn't happen at 10:15 a.m. It happened at 7:45 a.m. when the captain decided to rush. It happened when he decided that airline experience was a substitute for pre-flight preparation. Greg Biffle was a man who understood machines. He knew that to win a race, you have to spend hours in the garage. Tragically, he entrusted his life to a pilot who had forgotten that lesson. Be nice to your battery. Be nice to your machine. Because at 2,000 feet, the machine doesn't care who you are. It only cares if you respected it. I'm Kevin. And that is the battery theory. Fly safe. Or better yet, prepare safe.